Did you ever wonder if your piano keytops are made of ivory? In this video, we're going to show you how to identify and tell if your piano keytops are made of real ivory or if they're just plastic, like most of the modern pianos that are out there today. We're looking at a newer piano. This piano is from the 1990s, and all pianos from that recent would be made of, keytops would be made of plastic, and we're going to show you in a minute how to tell. We're going to show you an example of real ivory keytops and what some identifying things you can look at to tell you for sure if they are ivory or not. But if you look at these are plain white, solid white keytops. As we look a little closer at the keytops, you can see that they're just solid white, and that's how most of them are. Some of them you might look at and see that have kind of an off-white or ivory color, but if there's no lines through them, and we'll show you in a minute how to see those real ivory grain. If you don't have any of that, then you know that they're just plastic, which they really haven't put ivory keytops on any pianos since the early 1900s. I don't know exactly which year they stopped using real ivory, but even if you've got an older piano, it could be that the keytops were replaced at one time or another with plastic. So just don't assume that just because the piano is really old that it has ivory keytops. This is an example of plastic. So next we'll go to looking at some real ivory and even what are called simulated ivory keytops. Now here we're looking at the keytops of a grand piano from 1915. It's a Chickering Brothers grand piano, but it actually has real ivory keytops. Now this right here would be the key top. Down here which is what we call the key front. Sometimes you'll have ivory keytops and ivory key fronts. This one actually has plastic fronts. There's no grain in it, but the first thing you look for in identifying if a piano has ivory keytops is right here between this part of the keytop is called the head, and this part back here is the tail. Okay, and with real ivory keytops, in almost all situations with ivory keytops, you're going to have a little bit of a line right here separating the head from the tail. Okay, and I don't know if you can see it in the video. We're going to get the camera a little closer as we look at the grain, but there's a line here, and that's usually pretty visible on real ivory keytops. Now you could still have plastic keytops with that separation, not very common either, but that's a good sign. The next thing you want to do is you want to look at the actual. If you look up close to the keytop, do you see those swirls in the keytop right here? You've got swirls that they're lines, and they're usually curved lines, and that will tell you for sure if they're ivory. So the tails, there's a good example of the swirl or the ivory grain in the keytop. So you can see that these are real ivory keytop. Let's see if we look at the fronts, they're pretty solid. There's no grain or no line in the fronts, so we know those are plastic. But these keytops are definitely ivory. They'll have more of a satin feel to them. As you feel them, they're not smooth and slippery like you'd have on most plastic keytops. Now the other thing is you'll see sometimes, and you'll be able to see a clear difference here. I'm going to show you in a moment. Simulated ivory keytops. Now here we're going to show you some examples of simulated ivory keytops. This is a simulated ivory keytop head. This is just used to replace just the head portion of an ivory keytop. But if you look closely, and the camera doesn't catch it real well, but you can see that there's somewhat of a grain, but definitely different look than the real ivory. The biggest difference in this is that the simulated ivory doesn't have as much of a pattern as the real ivory keytops. So you'll see some swirls, but you won't see as distinct of a pattern in the simulated ivory keytops. So that's an example of a head. This is an example of a full-length head and tail simulated ivory keytop. There again, you can see some of the grained look, and they are a good replacement if you want some of that ivory type look, because they're not a bright white. They've got kind of an ivory color. But if you want to put those on an older piano, they're a nice substitute to the real ivory. Because obviously you can't purchase new ivory for replacement for your keytops to recover all of your keytops. So those are some things that you can look for. You may see simulated ivory keytops on a piano, and that you should be able to now recognize whether it's simulated ivory or if it's real ivory. But those things should be able to help you identify if your piano has real ivory keytops or not. If you have any questions, feel free to visit our website. It's howardpianoindustries.com.